Ain't no Dracos or fofos, and you will not be saved by the COs. Sometimes it's not even safe when the doors close. Just knife play and hand-to-hand combat in a land where it's never combat. Fake tough guys and actors sometimes get forced to put their boxers on backwards.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994 I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and some good insight on prison and the street life, and I'm gonna share some with y'all today. If you happen to like the video, definitely be sure to hit that like button. Leave a comment, subscribe, and most importantly, hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you will be notified ASAP, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Now, almost from the very time I started doing my YouTube page, people has often left comments in the comment section asking me, Chill, how does a person develop the mind state to be a gang member? How does a person develop the belief system that it takes to be able to go out there, gang bang, shoot, kill, sell people drugs, so on and so forth, right? And to be honest, it's a bunch of different things that may lead into a person's believing that it's okay to do some of those things, you know. It may sometimes run the gamut from bad decisions to having traumatic experiences in a person's life. But anyway, I want you guys to watch this video real quick, then I'll get back into what I'm talking about.
Yay, Grace Street. I said, nah, you look, I heard that line, cuz. No, cuz line, great. Who you talking to? KJ. No. I said, I did this. He's getting up right here with Grace Street. Nah, he like, so what you got to tell these folks? Get over here. Talk to these folks. Turn the camera around. Let me what's up to them folks? What's up, it's Grace Street right now. Yeah. My susu come over here. We gotta get over with you, cuz. Grace Street. My susu bring up and go.
Now, you saw right there in the video, you possibly had maybe a 4 or 5-year-old kid who obviously had been sitting around, listening to older guys talk, gang talk or whatever. And for those of you guys who are not familiar with the California lingo, the young kid basically was talking about whoever he considered. He was talking specifically to a certain group who are obviously the enemies and ops of the guys that he was standing around. But he was saying that if you come through here, I'm going to start dumping on you. We gonna get up with you and all that. Basically, he's talking about if you slide through here, of course, we gonna start shooting at you, right? So, God forbid any of those dudes that was hanging around him that day in that video, or anybody that he even knows or that he's closely related to, or a person that's close in his life for that matter, gets shot and killed or gets shot out there gang banging, because the only thing that's gonna do in that young kid's mind is reinforce the belief system that, yes, you know, shooting my enemies is cool. And so there have been many a times, you know, I'm sure a lot of us have sat around younger kids who were impressionable, and we have goaded them into throwing up gang signs, or we have, you know, we've given them gang phrases to say without realizing how much of a negative impact we are making on that child's life. It also reminds me of a friend we had who his mother was on drugs. He lived right there in the heart of our neighborhood. He also had 2 older uncles who lived there with him, who sold drugs, gang banged, and also influenced his life. You know, I can remember literally him being from around the age of 3 or 4. You know, his older uncles smoking weed, blowing it into his face, him taking pictures with blue rags on his shoulder, him just basically being indoctrinated and introduced to the gang life at a young age. You know, his house, like I said, set right in the middle of our neighborhood, so often drugs and stuff was sold from his house, and these are the things that he's seen, you know. And I actually had the privilege of interviewing him on my channel. The name of that interview is Why I Stabbed the Captain. part 1 and part 2. So if you haven't seen that video, I highly suggest you go see it, right? Especially if you're a person who hasn't lived in this gang life and you want to get a better understanding of how outside circumstances influence the mind state of a young person. And like I said, this dude was an extremely young person, and I literally can remember him hanging in the park around the age of 5, around the age of 6, you know. And of course, we all tried to look out for him as much as we could, but keep in mind, we were young ourselves, you know, 14, 15 years old or whatever. And then we couldn't be with him 24 hours a day anyway. He had 2 older uncles who lived with him, and of course they influenced his life heavily. They were gang members who sold drugs. Eventually, one of his uncles was murdered in a triple murder they had out there in Banning, and the other one went to prison a few times, and when he got arrested again for a murder, decided he didn't want to go to prison and ended up telling on his lifelong road dog, and he ended up on death row. I'm also thinking of a situation when I was locked up in the Riverside County Jail. I was locked up with a friend who I pretty much knew all my life, and he was a couple of years younger than me. I had also went to school with his older brothers. In Riverside County, at that time, we had vending machines. These vending machines sold things like soups, razors, brushes, hair grease, toothpaste, so on and so forth. And the way we would use these vending machines is when we first got arrested, they would give us a card. We would run our card through the vending machine, and then of course, you know, it would take money off our books and stuff like that. And so each day you were only allowed to spend $20, and that was kind of like a safeguard of, in the event somebody stole your card or whatever, they couldn't spend all your money. So you could go over there and check your balance, and if you checked your balance and it showed $20, then at least you knew you had $20 or more. And so if you went to check your balance one day and it showed that you had $9.50, then you knew that was all the money that you had. And of course, you would try to get some more money put back on your books whenever you could. Now, we was in the county jail together. I don't know how long, maybe a year, maybe not quite as long. But periodically, I would see him standing by the machines, you know, asking people to buy him this, buy him that. And I assumed that he didn't have no money, right? And so one night when we was getting ready to do the final lockdown, and of course, before we do the final lockdown, everybody wants to rush the machines that's able and get some snacks to take in their house. You know, so he's standing around asking somebody to buy me this, buy me this, buy me that, buy me that. And so finally, once the crowd dispersed, he goes to the machine. He looks around. He pulls out his card. He slides his card through here. He gets him a few items. I happen to notice that his balance is like maybe around $17 after he has purchased these items, which meant he at least had a fresh 20 or more on his card. So a couple days later, I asked him, I said, hey, homie, I pretty much asked him, why do you stand around the machines bogus begging? And so his response to me was, hey, chill, you know, well, when I grew up, homie, we didn't have much, man. My mom was on drugs. You know, he had 2 older brothers. One of his older brothers was a football star. And he said he would date women and sometimes have these women by him and his older brother, you know, things from McDonald's or Carl's Jr. or whatever, in order to bring them lunch. You know, he said he went to school, and on the way to school, he'd have to go into the local store, steal candy, steal food in order to, you know, to have lunch and stuff like that. So it went into his mindset that it was okay to hustle and get over on people. It became second nature to him because that's the way that he grew up, right? And so all these things sometimes help to form a person's belief system when they hop out there into the streets, right? Like I said, sometimes this is just bad decisions. Sometimes it's just traumatic experiences that a person has suffered that makes him believe, okay, it's cool to shoot and kill, right? I'm going to tell you guys a story about a friend of mine who was killed. Her name was Kim, and I believe she was about 15 or 16 years old. Now, this was in 1986. Now, keep in mind, I'm from Banning, which is an extremely small town. This was way before, of course, the social media, the YouTube, and at least in my community, way before there was a huge gang problem. Now, keep in mind also, Banning was a small town. I would say 60-70% of the people who I graduated high school with, I also started first grade with. So Banning was a small town, and the black community was even smaller. You know, I had been knowing Kim for an extremely long time. It seems like all my life. You know, of course, I would see her at school. I would see her at the basketball games, at the swimming pool, so on and so forth. So around 86, we had some drug dealers from another town Los Angeles, come down to Bannon and start selling drugs. She eventually began to date one of these drug dealers. And now while they're hanging out at a drug house in Bannon in the hood, an older lady from Bannon who was also friends with Kim stole one of these gang members' drugs. Once the gang member noticed that his drugs was missing, of course he becomes irate. He gets upset. He's ranting and raving about he'd better get his drugs back. So he figures out or finds out that the other girl has stole it. Now he pulls out a gun and he's ready to shoot and kill her. Kim, who has been knowing this girl all her life because she was only a few years older than Kim, jumped in front of the girl to try to save the girl. The guy ended up shooting and she was killed. Now, like I said, keep in mind, she was 15, 16 years old. And this was the first murder to happen in Bannon to somebody from my age group, you know. And so, of course, this also was back when, and so also this back when the time, and also this was back when the time where women and girls were extremely sacred. You know, you didn't beat up on girls. So this really pretty much shocked the whole community, you know, myself as well. And so it was things like that that I used later on once I hopped into the street to tell me that it was okay, you know, to shoot people, to do these things because they would come down here and do it to us, you know. Now those gang members, they ended up leaving. I don't believe they was ever captured for that crime. But when you would have other gang members come down, some of them would come with their bully tactics. Some of them would come with their bully ways, because let's keep in mind, the mindset of a gang member is that I'm tougher than you. So it was that situation and other situations that would happen later that I would use to fuel my anger and in my mind tell me it's okay to shoot these dudes because they gonna shoot us. In the California prison system now, one of the main reasons that lifers who happen to commit a crime under the age of 25 are given a second chance for parole is because the board realizes they had no control over their environment. They had no control over some of the belief systems they began to harbor due to other people around them influencing them in a negative manner. So that is one thing that is helpful in helping lifers who have caught a crime under the age of 25 get parole. That's not the only component. They have to stay disciplinary free for many, many years. They have to understand who they were when they committed the crime and how they've changed today, and a few other components. But those are some of the important things that will help a person who commits a crime under the age of 25 and is sentenced to life eventually gains his freedom. A lot of times in life, people will see the end result of a gang member, and of course, due to his crime, become angry at him, you know, judgmental, without understanding what he possibly may have went through in his life to get him to that point. Now, of course, I'm not making any excuses for an individual. I'm just giving a person some reasons why some of these things could possibly have happened. You know, a lot of us have experienced traumatic things in our life that led us to believe that you now deal with a certain thing in a certain way. If a gang member happens to catch a murder, let's just say August 1st, 2015, the attitude and the mentality to murder that person didn't happen that day. The attitude and the mentality to murder that person likely happened years before, when he jumped off the porch, started hanging with gang members, and started developing a mentality he felt was necessary to hang with gangs, right? As a gang member, you tell yourself, if I run across an enemy or somebody from a rival hood, I'm going to do A, B, and C. If a dude does this to me, my response is going to be A, B, and C, so on and so forth. So many of us actually create our response to a certain situation long before that situation actually arrives. That's why it's so easy for many of us to do certain things, because we've already told ourselves and basically trained in our minds, yeah, this is going to be my response. And a lot of times we'll reach what we feel is the right solution to a situation due to something traumatic that has happened in our past. Not saying that that's the way that we should deal with it, just answering for those who sometimes wonder, how can a person become a gang member and do the type of things that are necessary to thrive as a gang member? Anyway, you already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.